So you want to play some solitaire games. You've had enough of jigsaw puzzles, watching the telly. You want something a little bit more challenging. You want something thematic, something that tells a story, something that's going to fight back. Well, this is your top 10. There's going to be some games missing from the list because they're primarily multiplayer, but you can develop solitaire variants for. So even if there's stuff you don't fancy, you know, people do enjoy playing multiple roles in a game that's designed for more than one person. There's going to be games that haven't made the list because they're relatively new. This one's called Bremerhaven and plays 1 to 4. I'm looking forward to cracking this one open and learning about this game. Well, let's not delay. Let's get straight into the Box of Delights top 10 solitaire games. At number 10, Darkest Night. Darkest Night is a fully cooperative game made perfect for solitaire play. There's a minimum of 4 characters to be played, but managing their hand is really simple. All you need to do is select some specials. You get 3 out of 4 to set up each hero with. The rest gets shuffled into a short deck and become extra abilities that you can earn. You've only got a couple of health tracks here. You've got Grace and Secrecy. They start here and they can go up or down. And what I really like is this token here, which shows you when you've activated each character, you can turn them over. And you have the choice to activate your 4 heroes in any order you wish. Okay, so you can walk away, come back and remember who's been activated just by using the Sun Moon counter. As with other Victory Point games, you've got some dice rolling that determines the outcome of whether you defeat things like Shades, Desecration, earn these relics, and your job is to travel these areas, down these roads, ultimately defeat the Necromancer, but you're not going to be able to do that without finding relics and defeating these blights. The expansion within Inner Light adds this quest stack as well, so there's more expansions coming, so there's lots of variety here. It's great thematically, plays wonderfully solitaire, and you don't have to get bogged down in tons of rules. This one is a real favourite. Particularly enjoy the map cards, which tell you where blights come out and where items come out. So you've got like treasure chests, keys, you can use artifacts to be collected, and event cards, which kind of are familiar in cooperative games, things that drive the game along and determine what sorts of things that you're encountering as you're exploring this kingdom under the shadow of the Necromancer. My number 10, Darkest Night. At number 9, A Touch of Evil, the supernatural game. For me, A Touch of Evil wins the battle between Darkest Night and Arkham Horror for this kind of game. This time we have miniatures. This is the Scarlet Shadow and Adriana, the Foreign Traveller. And thematically, I enjoy the villains that we have to defeat here. You have the Spectral Horseman, who's one of my favourites, Headless Horseman, with his AI card here telling you how his minions appear on the board and how he moves around. Once more, there's going to be bad guys appearing, and it depends on which villain you're fighting. Comes with different guys. We've got bats, wolves, Succubus, The Walking Dead here. And as heroes, you have a small number of wounds to track, so you know that's no big deal. Each hero does have a special ability, and they've got stats. We've got Spirit, Cunning, Combat, and Honour. And just like Arkham Horror and Darkest Night, you can travel this landscape. We've got the Abandoned Keep, Manor, Windmill, Crossroads, the Oldie Woods, and a village here with a church, a blacksmith, a doctor's office, where you can go and heal wounds and train up your skills, draw event cards. So here we got things that cause events to happen on the board. You can go to these locations and find items. So we've got a musket, some danger, a collapse has occurred, it abandoned keeps. So there's bad things as well as good things here. And there's mystery cards that kind of drive the bad guys along. And I just love all the theme. But when you come to beat the bad guy, you've also got these town elders which can be recruited and join you, but each one has a secret. Right, so this one has a special ability, but some of them, here's a servant of darkness. They can go over and join the forces of the villain instead. So here, Sophie the midwife can turn evil and become Sophie the vixen. As well as town items you can go and acquire as well. Silver shot. You'll definitely need some silver shot for vampires, right? Or is it werewolves? Werewolves, I think. Alright, so it's a wonderful theme. The same kind of game, but for me this one just really draws me in. I enjoy the theme of it, and the way it plays Solitaire is a lot quicker. A wonderfully thematic, rich storytelling game. A touch of evil, my number 9. At number 8, Pathfinder adventure card game, Rise of the RUNELORDS. One thing you've got to be aware of when you're getting into this game is that when you start, you'll get the single adventure path, Burnt Offerings adventure deck. But this is going to be like a living game, and there are a number more expansions to come that continue the story. And if you buy the base set, you're going to want to get all the expansions as they come out, and they're coming out every few months or so. I picked up not too long ago the Skinshaw Murders. The Hook Mountain Massacre is on its way. Each adventure consists of a number of scenarios. In this example here I'm playing Trouble in Sandpoint, and each scenario has a number of locations. We've got Glassworks, Catacombs of Wrath, Shrine to Melishtu, Village House of the Old Light. There's a whole variety of locations. You play a group of adventurers, and playing Solitaire I'd recommend 3 adventurers. And with these adventurers, one of the things about this game is that when you begin the game with the introductory scenario, you'll have a basic deck which represents your hero. And this deck will consist of things like armour, weapon, allies, spells, potions, blessings, all the things you'd expect from a fantasy adventure. But as your heroes progress through each scenario, they're going to visit each of these locations, and the scenario is going to ask that you close a number of these locations and search out a villain, more often than not. Some scenarios don't have villains, but here we've got a villain to defeat to win the scenario. And as we're going through these things, we're coming across monsters, but we can also find henchmen and things that help us. So here we've got a barrier, that's a bad thing, a spell that we can acquire and add to our deck, a weapon that we can add to our deck, items, more new allies that we meet along the way, and a blessing. And these are things that you can pick up. These are called like boons. The bad things like monsters and henchmen and barriers of banes. These are things you've got to try and defeat. And these are things that you can acquire and add to your deck. So as you're playing through these scenarios, you're building your deck up. And when you finish this scenario, you defeat the villain and you're successful. The next scenario you set up, you'll have a completely new deck, or it'll have some of this new stuff that you've acquired. And also you gain experience as you go along, so each character card has got these little check boxes that you can tick off as rewards for defeating different scenarios. Like a role-playing game where you have a character that you develop over time and level up, this is a card game version of that kind of concept. It's a wonderful game. I'm really looking forward to the new stuff as it comes out, and for a solitaire experience you can't get a lot better than this adventure card game. That's my number 8. Pathfinder adventure card game. At number 7, the Dungeons & Dragons adventure system. There's 3 games in this series. It started with Castle Ravenloft, finished with The Legend of DRIZZT, and in between The Wrath of Ashardalin, which I don't have. If I was going to recommend any one of the 3, I would probably go for The Legend of DRIZZT. The game is a cooperative dungeon crawl. Your heroes begin on the start tile and you're exploring this stack of, in Legend of DRIZZT, it's these cavern tiles, and a scenario book gives you lots of different adventures to play through. How can you not love the miniatures? This is a feral troll, so he's quite strong. He's got an armor class of 12, which is quite low, but lots of hit points. And like Gears of War, the bad guys have got this AI, but unlike Gears of War, it's fixed per type of monster, as opposed to being a deck of cards. And it's all about moving spaces or moving tiles to the closest hero, an adjacent hero, or hero on the next tile. Whereas your heroes themselves have different types of attacks and at will powers and daily powers given by these cards. And as you explore new tiles, new monsters are going to come out, you're going to have encounters, and you're going to discover treasures from defeating things. It's these encounters that can really challenge you in this game. The monsters add all this different variety. It's a wonderful system, works really well, plays really well, and is a ton of fun. A nice, simple, yet deeply engrossing dungeon crawl. That's my number 7. Number 6, Cruel Necessity. For me, this has been one of the big solitaire hits of 2013 from Victory Point Games. This is the third in a series of games called States of Siege from John Welsh, and they're designed with solitaire play particularly in mind. Cruel Necessity set during the English Civil Wars from 1640 to 53, and I've got to say one of the reasons I love this game so much is that I'm driven by the theme. So you may find that, you know, this game isn't for you, but for me, it's everything I want. These political tracks reflect opposing forces of Catholicism, Puritanism, the monarchy, Parliament, Ireland and Scotland, with you taking on the role of Parliament. Your aim is to push these things up the track and push monarchy, Catholicism, Ireland up away from you. Each turn, event cards are drawn, and these things act out real historical events across this map and shift the political balance. But in addition, they may cause you to act out a battle of the time, and this is where you go to this tactical battle display map, and you set up the royalist forces against your parliamentary units, and you roll dice to do battle, and the results of those battles can win or lose you influence over the board and over these armies that are marching on London. These fortresses that are on the map will stop the advance of the royalist armies. Your job is to keep London defended until the end of the era. There's so much going on in this game. It's not hugely complex, but if you want a solitaire puzzle, and even if you're not a history fan, but if you are a history fan, this is going to mean a lot more to you. The flavour text, the artwork, all the different actions and the interplay of the mechanisms in the game are just rich and juicy. You can really get stuck into this one. I love Cruel Necessity, my number 6. At number 5, Legendary, a Marvel deck building game. This is my favourite deck builder to play solitaire. You can play this one 2-player, but for me, I much prefer it as a solitaire game. There's plenty of other 2-player games that I'd rather be playing. I'm not over enamoured with the organisation of the box, but that's a minor fault. It's still number 5 on my list for its gameplay. Again, what I like about this game is the large variety. I have a Dark City expansion which introduces some new heroes, X-Force, Marvel Knights, and the Fantastic Four. It's these guys, so we've got like Thing, Silver Surfer, different villains. a whole lot of good stuff. Human Torch, Invisible Woman. Okay. So all this stuff that you're familiar with in the Marvel universe. The base set had Spider-Man, one of my favourite characters from a kiddie. In this game what you do is you have some headquarters, an HQ. You'll choose 3 types of hero. You start with a deck of simple cards, just shield troopers and shield agents. And each one of these, you draw a hand, is going to give you some spending power or some combat power. So you add a villain to the city here, you draw the top of the villain deck. So here we've got Electro. And to defeat Electro we need 6 attack. So with my basic cards I've only got 2. But I've got some spending power, I've got 4 stars to spend. So the idea here is that I can, like this guy here costs 6. But he would have 4 attack and maybe some special abilities too. So you're spending your 4, let's say I want to pick up this one, this goes in your discard pile, and then you refill the HQ, and then you start again, draw a new villain, draw another 6 cards, and with each turn you're buying new cards and defeating these villains and henchmen here that are coming out. The ultimate aim is to beat the mastermind. Here I've set up with Kingpin. So you can mix up your heroes, you can mix up your mastermind, you can mix up your villains and henchmen, and then you can also mix up the scheme, and this is kind of gives you, if you like, a scenario around this to beat. So in the villain deck there's this timing mechanism. Every time you draw a scheme twist it causes this scheme to activate, and there's only 7 scheme twists here, and if you draw the 7th scheme twist, it says here, evil wins. The deck building genre's come a long way since Dominion, and if you're looking for a solitaire deck builder, you can't do better than Legendary, and that's why it's my number 5. At number 4, Hoplomachus, The Lost Cities. Hoplomachus is a game that can be played solitaire, cooperatively or 2-player. Playing solitaire and cooperatively, you're playing against the Vesuvian arena in the time of the Romans in this Flavian amphitheatre. You can take on the role of one of 3 cities, Xanadu, El Dorado, and, as you see set up here, Atlantis, whilst the arena pits criminals and beasts against you, as well as one of 6 arena bosses. Here we have Mamura the giant. Each city has a champion and a number of different units or gladiators that will fight to defend your champion while trying to take down the arena boss. You'll earn crowd favour by taking out these arena beasts and criminals, by controlling these pedestals in the centre of the arena. And crowd favour will give you new tactics which you can deploy, and ultimately a crowd champion who can come and fight on your behalf. You're fighting with dice, and your health is represented by these chips. This is developed by Chip Theory Games. And what I love about this game is being able to slap these chips down and move them around the board. And this is very much a positional game where you're trying to outwit your opponent, whether it's the arena or another player. This is a quick game to set up and roll out and start slapping some chips down. You'll have a whale of a time with Hoplomachus, my number 4. And number 3, The Lord of the Rings, the card game. Lord of the Rings, the card game, is a living card game. And what that means is you get a basic deck, a basic set, a core deck. And expansions will come along, but there'll be a fixed set of cards in each expansion. For example, I've got a bunch of adventure packs here. The game can be played with 1 or 2 players. If you're playing solitaire, you can take on the role of either 1 player or 2 players. I like it to play 1 player, I'm experimenting with a deck at the moment, which is kind of a mixed sphere of influence. So each of your main characters, your hero cards, here I've got some dwarves, Diana, Nori and Ori, and these are your three main characters, but you'll build a deck of allies, attachments, events, and this is completely customizable. Right, so as you get more cards and more expansions, you can customise the contents of the deck, experiment, use different cards to defeat the different scenarios that are presented to you. As well as creatures that are engaged with you, you have the threat of the staging area. These are locations that are ahead of you and monsters that are threatening to engage with you. And this staging area, you need to have the strength of will within your fellowship to overcome. Excess willpower over and above the threat here will allow you to place progress tokens on these scenario locations and thereby work your way through these scenarios. At the same time, each turn there'll be new cards coming out of this encounter deck. So new creatures, here we've got a forest spider, new locations like this forest gate, or indeed there are some treacheries. These are things that have like these when revealed effects. This one says deal 1 damage to each character controlled. And all the while you've got to try and complete this without your threat going up to 50. So you've got to kind of balance between questing, using your willpower, and having characters in reserve to take on these creatures that are engaging with you. The delight in this game is the metagame of building your deck before you even start play, right? Grabbing all these expansions and building a deck, experimenting with different card combinations, as well as the rich themes of the scenarios and all the different creatures that you're going to encounter. And we're all familiar with the story, and it's so well represented here with all the different cards and all the different scenarios and locations. If you're looking for a solitaire card playing game where you're doing some deck construction with a nice rich and familiar theme, Lord of the Rings, the card game, is a great place to start. That's my number 3. Number 2, Ignacy Trzewiczek's Robinson Crusoe Adventure on the Cursed Island. Setting up to play Robinson Crusoe is always exciting because you never know what story is going to unfold. Here I've chosen scenario 6, the Robinson family. Our aim here is to build a shelter with a roof, palisade, gather some weapons and complete a whole set of 9, I think it is, inventions. The only way to complete these inventions is to go and find the prerequisites. So for the dam we need some wood and we need to find a river. For the raft we need a rope and some wood. And the way we do this is we set out and explore this island. Our shelter starts here. So in this scenario the Robinson family have been washed ashore, and when Ignacy Trzewiczek designed the game he was thinking, what do people want to do when they get stranded on an island? They want to build a shelter, they want to look for food, they want to gather wood and explore. And this game is going to throw all sorts of things at you. As you're exploring, you're taking risks, you're throwing dice, and potentially adventures are going to come out. So we've got some dangerous terrain here, or we might get the flu. But what's interesting about these is that these cards get built into an event deck, which gets driven along during the game. And some of these adventures you have, they've got 2 sections. This is like the immediate effect, and then you have a consequential effect. So if you don't do something by a certain time, when this card reappears, then you may, in this case, get a sore throat and suffer some penalties for it. So this game is about telling that story of being on that island, and these actions you take have a reaction. So the game kind of plays back, and that's what's great about this, is that every game is a story, and it feels like the actions you take and the way you respond influences that story. So you're playing with the game and you're part of this story, very much so. It's fundamentally worker placement. You've got different characters with different abilities. Here I've got the carpenter. I'm playing solitaire. We've got Friday, Old Man Friday, and the dog, which come with their own action pawns. And you can spend these actions to, handle events, fight beasts, build stuff, go gathering resources, or exploring the island, all sorts of different things. If there's one cooperative game you need in your collection, it's Robinson Crusoe Adventure on the Cursed Island, my number 2. At number 1, Mage Knight board game. So, did you guess it? I'm thinking that you guys didn't really expect anything other than Mage Knight board game. This is my number 1, my ultimate solitaire game, and it has everything you need. There's story, there's adventure, there's exploration, there's dice rolling, there's monsters to fight and treasures to find. You've got hand management, cards to be played, interplay of card effects, leveling up, there's spells, advanced actions, units to be recruited, fame, reputation, wounds that clog your deck, a whole heap of variety. Look at all these different types of monsters that are going to come out and fight you. We've got dungeons, we've got keeps, we've got towers, we've got monasteries we can burn, we've got mines where we can find crystals. Crystals fuel stronger, powerful effects. This game is my number 1 for a very good reason. It does play multiplayer 1 to 4, but I'm not playing this with anyone else. This is my solitaire experience. I think with multiplayers it's too much of a game, but for 1 it's perfect. The fame track up here allows you to record different scores. There's a scoring mechanism for areas of the map that you've explored at the end of the game. A ton of variety in all the different cards, the units, the artifacts. I mean, you're only going to get, a very few of these into play each game. And with the expansions as well, Mage Knight is a solitaire game that you can enjoy for a long time. If you need just one game for solitaire play, it would be my number 1, Mage Knight.